Rather than focusing on conflict, this analysis looks at how misjudgment and structural errors can escalate ordinary encounters into strategic consequences. This fictional case study examines how routine decisions fail when built on outdated assumptions. It explores overconfidence, power imbalance, and institutional blind spots when systems encounter unexpected adaptability.
Captain Rek's third eye stalk twitched with irritation as he stared at the drifting wreck through the viewport. Another human derelict. Fantastic. Just what his salvage crew needed. More junk from the species that couldn't figure out faster than light travel until every other civilization in the galaxy had already colonized half the known systems. Tolman. Run a scan. Tell me this floating garbage heap has something worth our time. Rek clicked his mandibles together in that particular way that meant he was already regretting this detour. The aquatic engineer, currently suspended in his mobile gel tank, manipulated the sensor array with his webbed appendages. His translator implant crackled to life, reading minimal power signatures. Looks like emergency systems only. Hull integrity is, well, it exists. Barely. I'm detecting one active cryopod though. One. Rin, the reptilian security officer, hissed from her station. Her scales rippled with amusement. Humans really are terrible at this whole space travel thing, aren't they? Who launches a vessel with a single occupant? Rek's mandibles clicked again, faster this time. Probably some rich idiot who thought he could cross the Andromeda Gap in cryo sleep. You know how humans are. Big dreams, small brains, terrible math skills. Captain, the pod is marked, Tom announced, his voice bubbling through his tank speakers. Multiple languages, including Galactic Standard. Well, at least they tried to be civilized, Rek muttered. What does it say? Tom's eye stalks bent at an angle that suggested he was reading something he didn't quite believe. Warning, critical cargo. Do not disturb. Authorized personnel only. Extreme caution advised. And then there's this bit in human English. Seriously. Just leave this one alone. Rin's laugh was a sharp barking sound. Oh, that's adorable. Humans and their drama. What do they think is in there? Some kind of super soldier? Probably just someone important to them, Rek said, already calculating salvage values in his head. You know how humans get about their hierarchy. Could be a politician, a celebrity, maybe one of their so-called scientists. He made a dismissive gesture with two of his 6 arms. Dock us, we're taking that pod. Medical-grade cryo units fetch good money on the secondary markets. You sure about this, Captain? Tom's voice carried a note of concern that Rek immediately ignored. Those warnings seem pretty specific. Tom, my friend, I've been salvaging human wrecks for 15 cycles. You know what I've learned. Humans put warning labels on everything. They have warnings for hot beverages. Hot beverages. As if the steam rising from the cup wasn't sufficient indication. Rek manipulated the ship's controls with practiced ease, bringing them alongside the derelict vessel. Their warning labels mean absolutely nothing. Rin was already suiting up, checking her plasma cutter and magnetic clamps. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? Human wakes up, gets confused. We explain the situation, drop them off at the nearest human colony, collect our finder's fee. Easy credits. Exactly, Rek agreed, his mandibles spreading in what passed for a smile among his species. Humans are fragile, slow, and completely unremarkable. The galaxy's most aggressively average species. I've met houseplants with more impressive capabilities. Tom sighed, bubbles rising through his tank. You know, Captain, one of these days your dismissive attitude toward other species is going to create real problems for us. Not today, though, Rek said cheerfully, watching as Rinmag locked onto the human vessel's hull. Today, we're just going to grab one sleeping human, maybe salvage some outdated navigation equipment, and be on our way. Simple, clean, profitable. The hull breached with a hiss of equalizing pressure. What, Rek continued, could possibly go wrong? The cryopod sat in their cargo bay like an oversized coffin, frost still clinging to its edges despite the warming cycle Tom had initiated. Rek circled it with the confidence of someone who had absolutely no idea what he was dealing with. Vitals are stabilizing, Tom announced from his tank, monitoring the readouts. Heart rate increasing, brain activity spiking. He's coming around. He? Rin asked, adjusting her plasma rifle to a non-lethal setting. Not that she expected to need it. Humans were pushovers. Male, yes. Approximately. Tom paused, his translator struggling with human measurements. 6 feet tall. Maybe a bit more. Physiological markers seem normal for their species. Nothing unusual. The pod seal released with a pneumatic hiss that made all 3 salvagers step back instinctively. White vapor poured out, and through the dissipating fog they could see movement. A hand emerged first, gripping the edge of the pod. Not frantically, not weakly, just casually, like someone getting out of bed on a lazy morning. Then the human sat up. Vrek had seen dozens of cryo revivals. They always went the same way. Confusion, panic, disorientation, usually some vomiting. The human body didn't handle suspended animation well, and humans typically needed several minutes to remember how their limbs worked. This human stretched, actually stretched, arms over his head, rolling his shoulders like he was working out a kink from a nap. Morning, the human said, his voice rough but clear. Or, well, whenever it is. Vrek's mandibles froze mid-click. The human was looking directly at him with eyes that were far, far too alert for someone who'd just been thawed out. Vrek tried to recover his composure. You speak Galactic Standard, among other things. The human replied, swinging his legs out of the pod and standing up in one smooth motion. No wobbling, no disorientation. He was wearing a simple gray uniform with no insignia, nothing to indicate rank or purpose. Name's Jace Corin, and you 3 are salvagers. Judging by the smell of this ship and the fact that I'm no longer on mine. Rin's scales rippled nervously. Humans weren't supposed to be this coherent this quickly. How did you know? I mean, how are you even standing right now? Jace looked at her with an expression that might have been amusement. Standing? Why wouldn't I be standing? Cryo's not that rough. He glanced around the cargo bay, taking in details with unsettling focus. Nice ship. Kelvin-class light freighter, right? You've modified the engine housing though. Clever. Tolm's eyes stalks retracted slightly into his tank. How do you know our ship classification? I can read, Jace said simply, pointing to a maintenance panel with Kelvin script on it. Also, your artificial gravity is running 0.03 above standard. Might want to calibrate that. It'll wear on your power couplings. Vrek felt something cold settle in his stomachs. All 3 of them. You just woke up from cryo sleep. Yep, after, according to our scans, roughly 200 cycles. 217 actually, Jace corrected, examining his hands like he was checking for freezer burn. Give or take a few months. Hard to be precise with temporal drift, and you're just fine. Rin's grip on her rifle tightened. Jace looked at her, and for just a moment something flickered in his eyes. Something that made Vrek's instincts scream that they'd made a terrible, terrible mistake. Then the human smiled. Friendly. Warm. Completely non-threatening. Fine. I'm great. Little hungry though. You guys have anything to eat? Please tell me the galaxy hasn't stopped making coffee. That would be genuinely devastating. Tolm bubbled nervously. Captain, his neurological patterns, they don't match standard human baselines. There's activity in regions that shouldn't even exist in their species. Jace turned toward the tank, and Tolm visibly flinched. Good ears. Well, ear stalks. You know what I mean. He walked toward them, and all 3 salvagers backed up despite themselves. So here's the thing. You guys seem nice. Little impulsive with the whole ignoring warning labels situation, but nice. So I'm going to give you a choice. Vrek's voice came out as a whisper. What kind of choice? The kind where we talk about this like reasonable beings, Jace said, his casual tone somehow making everything worse, or the kind where you learn exactly why those warning labels were there in the first place. Vrek tried to reassert control of the situation by doing what he did best, being aggressively captain-like. He straightened to his full height, which at 7 feet was still impressive to most species, and clicked his mandibles authoritatively. Now listen here, human. You're on my ship, and I think you're forgetting that we're the ones with weapons. Jace nodded agreeably. That's true. Rin's got a tactical solutions Mark 7 plasma rifle military surplus from the Kovath conflicts about 30 cycles back. Safety's on, by the way, and Tolm's tank has integrated defense system stun charges probably, though the left emitter has a short in it. You can tell by the way it's humming, just slightly off frequency. Rin looked down at her rifle, then at Tolm, whose eye stalks were now fully retracted in his tank. How could you possibly? Tolm started, but Jace was already moving, walking past them toward the cargo bay door. Your ship's running on a modified fusion core, efficiency rated at about 73%, which is honestly pretty good for a vessel this old, Jace continued, like he was giving a casual tour. You've got a crew of 3, no automated systems because you don't trust AI after the synthesis wars, which fair. Your last 3 jumps were to the Kelvar system, the Margot belt, and somewhere around the Tyrian cluster. I can tell by the residual radiation signatures your hull plating picked up. Vrek's mandibles hung open. You can't just, Nobody can analyze that from looking at a ship's interior for 30 seconds. Sure they can, Jace said, stopping at a wall panel. Mind if I? He didn't wait for an answer, just pressed his hand against it. The panel lit up, recognizing his touch despite having zero record of his biometrics in any database. Okay, what in the 12 hells? Rin hissed, her rifle now very much pointed at Jace. Safety decidedly off. Your navigation computer has a memory core from a completely different ship class, Jace observed, scrolling through data that he absolutely should not have access to. Scrapped it from somewhere, and you've been avoiding the main trade lanes for looks like 6 months now. Someone hunting you? Or are you hunting someone? Stop, Breck commanded, trying to inject authority into his voice and failing miserably. Stop touching my systems. Jace pulled his hand back, still smiling that unsettling friendly smile. Sorry. Habit. But here's the fun part, and I mean this sincerely. You three don't speak galactic standard as well as you think you do. Tolm's bubbling intensified. Excuse me, Vec. You've got a lisp when you pronounce sibilants. Something about mandible structure. Tolm, your translator has a lag of 0.2 seconds, and you compensate by predicting what people are going to say, which works great until it doesn't. And Rin, you're actually speaking in your native tongue right now and just assuming the translation is working. Rin's scales flushed a deep purple. I am not, I'm clearly speaking. She paused. Then her eyes widened. How did you know that? Because I'm not using a translator, Jace said simply. I'm actually speaking your languages, all 3 of them, simultaneously. Your brains are just processing it as whatever's most comfortable for you to hear. The cargo bay went very, very quiet. Vrek felt his third stomach clench. That's not possible. The human brain doesn't have the processing capacity for simultaneous multilingual projection. That's a level of neurological complexity that would require— Yeah, Jace interrupted gently. It would. Rin tried a different approach, playing to human ego, something that usually worked. Okay, you're clearly special. Important. We get it. So what were you? Some kind of human military commander? A general? Their version of elite forces? Jace laughed, and it was a genuine sound, warm and completely at odds with the growing terror in the room. Oh, that's sweet. No, nothing like that. The military as well, they're fine for what they do, but they're not really equipped for someone like me. What does that mean? Tolm whispered. It means, Jace said, walking back toward them with easy confidence, that humanity didn't put me in cryosleep because I was important. They put me in cryosleep because I made them nervous. Really, really nervous. The kind of nervous where your entire species agrees that maybe, just maybe, I should take a long nap until they figured out what to do with me. Vrek's voice came out strangled. What do you mean, what to do with you? Jace's smile never wavered, but his eyes, those 2 alert, 2 aware eyes, carried something ancient. Well, that's the question, isn't it? What do you do with a human who's a bit more than human, who's maybe had some modifications, some enhancements, some fundamental rewiring that makes them thin new, something that scared Earth's entire scientific community so badly they decided isolation was the safest option? You're engineered, Rin breathed. Engineered, evolved, enlightened. The terminology gets fuzzy. Jace shrugged. Point is, those warning labels, they weren't about protecting me. They were about protecting everyone else from me. Rin did what any sensible security officer would do when faced with a potential threat. She fired. The plasma bolt should have hit Jace's center mass. Should have. Instead, he wasn't there anymore. He was 3 feet to the left, examining a storage crate like he'd been standing there the whole time. Decent shot, Jace commented. Little high though. You're compensating for recoil before it happens. Common mistake. Rin fired again. And again. Each bolt hit exactly where Jace had been a fraction of a second before. He moved like he knew where she was going to aim before she did, flowing around the plasma fire like water around stones. Stop. Stop, stop. Vrek shrieked, waving his arms frantically. You're going to breach the hull. Jace held up a hand, and Rin found her rifle suddenly too heavy to lift, not being pulled away, just heavy. Like it weighed 300 pounds. She dropped it with a clatter. Localized gravity manipulation, Tolm whispered, his voice barely audible through his tank speakers. That requires technology we don't even have theoretical frameworks for. Not technology, Jace corrected, lowering his hand. The rifle returned to normal weight. Just me. Well, me and about 15 years of experimental neurological enhancement that humanity really, really wishes they could take back. Vrek collapsed onto a cargo container, all 6 arms trembling. Explain. Please, before my hearts give out, and I have 5 of them, so that's saying something. Jace sat down across from him, cross-legged, completely relaxed. Fair enough. So, about 220 years ago, Earth had this brilliant idea. Humans were expanding into space, meeting species like yourselves who'd been doing this for millennia, and we were, well, embarrassingly behind, slow, fragile, limited. So some very smart, very ethically questionable scientists decided to fix that. They made you, Rin said, rubbing her arms where the rifle's weight had strained her muscles. They made a lot of us, actually. Project Ascension. Cute name, terrible execution. They wanted to enhance human capabilities, push the boundaries of what our species could do. Neural rewiring, genetic optimization, something they called quantum consciousness integration, which even I don't fully understand, and I'm living with it. Tolm's eye stalks extended slightly, scientific curiosity overriding his fear. What happened to the others? Jace's expression flickered, something sad crossing his features. Some couldn't handle it. The human mind isn't really built for that level of expansion. They stopped being people. Others handled it too well, decided they were beyond humanity, started making plans that involved subjugating rather than helping. Those ones had to be stopped. And you? Freck asked quietly. I was right in the middle. Stable enough to be functional, enhanced enough to be dangerous, and just human enough to realize how terrifying that combination was. Jace leaned back against a bulkhead. So I volunteered for the Cryo program. Earth's government was happy to agree. Put me on ice until they figured out if I was an asset or a threat. Guess they never decided. 'Cause here I am, 2 centuries later, still frozen. Until we thawed you out, Vreck said, the full weight of their mistake settling on him like a collapsing star. Until you thawed me out, Jace confirmed. Which, to be fair to you guys, you had no way of knowing. Those warning labels were pretty vague. Rin had retrieved her rifle but wasn't pointing it anywhere near Jace. So what now? You mentioned a choice earlier, right? The choice. Jace stood up in one fluid motion. Here's the thing. I've been asleep for 200 years. I have no idea what Earth is like now if Project Ascension continued, if there are others like me, what humanity's position in the galaxy is. I'm completely disconnected from everything I knew, and, Tolm prompted, and I could really use some help getting oriented. Also, like I said, very hungry. Cryo sleep does terrible things to your metabolism. Jace looked at each of them in turn. So here's option 1. You help me out. Show me what the galaxy looks like these days. Maybe point me toward the nearest human colony, and we all pretend this was just a weird morning. No harm, no foul. What's option 2? Vreck asked. Though he wasn't sure he wanted to know, Jace's smile turned slightly sharper. Option 2 is I take your ship, access your navigation database, and figure things out myself. You 3 would be fine. I'd drop you off somewhere civilized, but I'd really prefer option 1. I've been alone for 2 centuries. I'd like some company. And you 3 seem decent enough, despite the whole ignoring warning labels thing. Vreck looked at Tolm, who looked at Rin, who looked back at Vreck. They were thinking the same thing. They'd stumbled onto something way above their pay grade, something that probably warranted contacting the Galactic Council or the Human Alliance, or literally anyone with more authority than a 3-person salvage crew. But they'd also seen what Jace could do with barely any effort. If he wanted their ship, he'd take it. If he wanted them dead, they'd be dead. The fact that he was sitting there asking nicely, offering them a choice, that meant something. The nearest human colony is 3 jumps from here, Vreck said slowly. Outpost called New Geneva. Small, mostly research facilities and trade stations. Jace's smile softened back to genuine warmth. Perfect. And on the way you can tell me everything that shins. Politics, technology, the good stuff. Also, seriously, food. Please tell me you have something edible on this ship. Tolm bubbled what might have been a laugh. We have ration packs. I've been asleep for 200 years, Jace said, standing and stretching again. At this point I'd eat recycled protein paste and call it a feast. Good, Rin said dryly, because that's basically what ration packs are. They sat in the ship's common area, Jace working through his 3rd ration pack while Vreck tried to process the information flowing from the human's mouth between bites of reconstituted protein. So let me get this straight, Vreck said, his mandibles clicking nervously. Earth didn't just put you in cryo. The entire Galactic Council agreed to it. Jace nodded, swallowing. Oh yeah, big multilateral agreement. Humanity was just starting to make noise on the galactic stage, and then Project Ascension happened. Suddenly there were humans who could do things that made the older species very uncomfortable. Tolm adjusted something on his tank, his voice cautious. What kind of things? Well, there was Thompson. She could interface with any computer system just by touching it. Like any system, including the quantum archive on Centauri Prime that was supposed to be completely isolated and unhackable. Then there was Okoye. He developed the ability to perceive probability streams, could predict outcomes with about 97% accuracy. And Chen, she figured out how to manipulate atomic bonds with her mind, just rearrange matter on a molecular level. Ren's scales had gone pale. That's impossible. That's what everyone said. Right up until Chen turned a chunk of iron into gold during a demonstration for the Human Council. Then it became very, very possible and very, very terrifying. Jace finished the ration pack and crumpled the container. The thing about humans, we're adaptable. That's our whole evolutionary advantage. But when you enhance that adaptability at a neurological level, when you remove the limitations that keep us safely average, well, things get interesting. Interesting is a diplomatic word, Vrek muttered. The Galactic Council uses words like destabilizing, unpredictable, and my personal favorite, potentially extinction-level threat. Jace's tone was light, but there was an edge to it. They came to Earth with a proposal. Humanity could continue expanding into the galaxy, join the Council, participate in galactic trade and politics, but Project Ascension had to end. All enhanced humans had to be either neutralized or contained. Tolm's eye stalks retracted. Neutralized meaning killed. Some argued for that, yeah. The Vraxian delegation was particularly vocal about it, but Earth pushed back, said we'd put the stable ones in cryo sleep instead, isolate them until some undefined future point when the galaxy could handle us. The Council agreed, added some stipulations about monitoring, about keeping the locations classified, about making sure no one accidentally woke us up. Vrek felt his stomach sink. All three of them. Again. The warning labels, Jace confirmed, which were supposed to be multilingual, explicit, and impossible to ignore, but I'm guessing over 200 years maybe some of that information got lost, or maybe, his eyes focused on Vrek with unsettling intensity, maybe certain parties wanted it to get lost. What do you mean? Rin asked. Jace stood pacing the small common area. Think about it. You guys are salvagers, you find derelicts all the time, right? What are the odds you just happened to stumble across a 200-year-old human vessel in the middle of nowhere, one that just happened to contain one of Earth's most classified secrets? We picked up a distress beacon, Tolm said slowly. Automated, coded as a general salvage opportunity. A beacon that activated after 2 centuries of silence. Convenient. Jace stopped pacing. Someone wanted me found. Someone wanted me awake. The question is who and why. Rek's mind raced through the implications. The Council would never authorize this. If they wanted you contained, they'd send a military fleet, not wait for random salvagers. Unless the Council doesn't know, Rin suggested. Or unless there's a faction within the Council that has other plans. Jace snapped his fingers, pointing at her. Now you're thinking like a conspiracy theorist, which in galactic politics is just called being realistic. He sat back down, his casual demeanor slipping slightly. 200 years is a long time. Earth has probably changed. The Council has definitely changed. Power structures shift. New conflicts emerge. Old alliances crumble. Maybe someone out there thinks that an enhanced human could be useful. A weapon. A tool. Leverage. Or maybe, Tolm ventured quietly, they want to see if you're still as dangerous as the records say. The common area fell silent except for the ambient hum of the ship's systems. Jace's expression hardened. Just for a moment. And the temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Not literally probably, but Vrek felt it anyway. A reminder that the friendly, casual human sitting across from them was something far more than he appeared. Well, Jace said, his smile returning but not quite reaching his eyes. I guess we're all going to find out together. Because whoever activated that beacon knows you found me by now. They're tracking this ship. And they're coming. Vrek looked at his crew, saw his own fear reflected in their faces. They hadn't just made a mistake. They'd stumbled into something galactic, something political, something that had been buried for 2 centuries for very, very good reasons. And now, they were right in the center of it. Great, Vrek said weakly. Just great. The proximity alarm started screaming before anyone could respond to Jace's revelation. Rin scrambled to her console, scales flashing through multiple colors of alarm, 3 ships dropping out of hyperspace. Military configuration. Oh no, they're broadcasting Council authorization codes. How long do we have? Jace asked, already moving toward the cargo bay. 4 minutes. Maybe 5 before they're in weapons range, Tolm reported, his bubbling frantic. Captain, what do we do? Vrek's mandibles clicked rapidly, his species equivalent of panicked muttering. This was it. They'd violated about 17 different galactic laws by unfreezing a classified human asset, and now the Council's enforcers were here to clean up the mess, which probably meant cleaning them up too. Jace, Vrek started, but the human was already at a wall panel, his hand pressed against it. Your ship's faster than it looks, Jace said. Data flowing across the screen faster than any of them could read. Modified engines, reinforced hull, and you've got a smuggler's jump drive hidden behind that cargo partition. Very illegal. Very useful. How did you? Rin began, but Jace cut her off. 3 minutes now. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to give you coordinates. You're going to jump. And you're going to forget you ever found me. What about you? Tolm asked. Jace's smile was sharp, predatory. I'm going to have a conversation with whoever thought waking me up was a good idea. Should be educational for everyone involved. Vrek felt something twist in his chest. Something that might have been conscience. They'll kill you. Or capture you. Either way, you'll disappear. Maybe, Jace agreed. Or maybe I'll finally get some answers about what Earth has been doing for 200 years. Either way, you three don't need to be here for it. He pulled his hand away from the panel, and their navigation system chimed with new coordinates. That'll take you to a station outside Council jurisdiction. You'll be safe there. This is insane, Rin hissed. You're one human against 3 military vessels. Jace's laugh was genuine, warm and absolutely terrifying given the circumstances. You know what's funny? You still think of me as human. That's sweet. But the things they did to me, the modifications, the enhancements, I stopped being just human a long time ago. I'm something else now, something the Council was right to be afraid of. He walked toward the airlock, then paused, turning back to them. Thanks for the wake-up call, and the ration packs, and for not shooting me more than a few times. You're good people, even if you are terrible at reading warning labels. Wait, Vrek said, surprised by his own voice. What are you really? What did they actually make you? Jace's expression softened, something almost sad crossing his features. They made me a bridge, between what humanity was, and what they could become. Between limited and limitless, between mortal and, well, something that has trouble with that whole mortality thing. He stepped into the airlock. The Council buried us because they were afraid humans would evolve past them. Turns out they were right to be afraid. The airlock sealed. Through the viewport, they watched as Jace simply stepped out into space. No suit, no protection. Just walking through vacuum like it was a particularly brisk morning. He's not breathing, Tolm whispered. Sensors tracking the impossible human. His body temperature is stabilizing. He's generating his own electromagnetic field. That can't be. Jump, Vrek ordered, his voice hoarse. Jump now. Rin engaged the smuggler's drive and reality twisted around them. The last thing their sensors registered was Jace, floating in space between their fleeing vessel and the approaching Council ships, raising one hand in a casual way. Then they were gone, hurtling through hyperspace toward coordinates they didn't recognize. Hours later, after they'd stopped shaking, after they'd verified they weren't being followed, Vrek found himself staring at the empty cargo bay where the cryopod had been. You know what the worst part is? He said to no one in particular. Tolm's voice bubbled through the intercom. That we potentially unleashed something catastrophic on the galaxy? No. Vrek clicked his mandibles softly. The worst part is that I think he was holding back the entire time. Everything we saw, every ability he demonstrated, I think that was him being polite. Rin appeared in the doorway, scales still flickering nervous colors. The galactic networks are going crazy. Reports of an incident near our last location. 3 Council ships, damaged but intact. Crews reporting a single human who talked to them for 6 minutes and then just left, disappeared into hyperspace without a ship. Of course he did, Vrek muttered. There's more. Rin continued. Earth is issuing statements. Turns out there are 17 other cryo ships out there, other enhanced humans, and someone's been systematically activating their beacons. Vrek felt his third stomach clench. Someone's waking them all up. The Council kept humans down because they were afraid of what we'd become, Tolm observed quietly. Looks like they're about to find out if they were right. Vrek looked at his crew, his ship, his simple salvager's life that had just become infinitely more complicated. You know what, he said finally. I'm retiring. Immediately. Going to buy a nice quiet farm somewhere. Raise livestock. Never touch another derelict vessel again. Captain, Rin said, almost gently. You don't know anything about farming. I'll learn, Vrek insisted. It has to be easier than this. Somewhere in the depths of space, Jace Coronel smiled, feeling the quantum threads of 17 other enhanced consciousnesses beginning to wake, and thought about how humanity had always been good at playing the long game. The galaxy was about to get very, very interesting.
This is a fictional case study about decision-making under uncertainty. It examines how overconfidence and outdated assumptions can turn a routine action into a systemic failure. The focus is not on conflict, but on adaptability, power dynamics, and what happens when reality no longer fits existing models.